Good afternoon, friends. If you want to follow the intricacies of this item of business, you might want to have Agenda and Notes Appendix C open in front of you. That's on pages 26 to 29 of that document. But perhaps first I'll just say a little bit about what this is about. We made decisions, as you'll remember, at yearly meeting last year to move to holding a continuing yearly meeting so that we'll come together around 4 times each year. And that meeting will be held in place of Meeting for Sufferings, which has been a representative body that will meet until March next year, and then you agreed last year that it will be laid down. So that was a big decision with quite far-reaching implications for how we organise things and for how our structures work. And if you've done your preparation and read minute 37 of yearly meeting last year, you'll have seen that it's quite a to-do list and gave us a great deal of stuff to work on. And I'm very glad to have been joined on management meeting in that task by Sarah Donaldson, who you'll hear from in a moment. So there's quite a lot there. And the first part of it is to put in place the committee structure that's needed to support that continuing yearly meeting and make sure it has an agenda and that all the arrangements for it are in place. What all of this means is that when we leave yearly meeting on 4th of May next year, as we're at the beginning of May next year, we'll be coming back together for a further day in July and another in November, and then in 2027 there'll be 4 yearly meeting sessions spread through the year, and in that year, in fact, there'll be a summer residential. Planning for that transition has begun, although there's still a lot to be discerned and decided. And one of the ways we're going to decide some of those things is to work with the Agenda Planning Committee, I hope you're about to agree to, so that all the things can be put in place. So you have in the documentation draft terms of reference for that committee. Meeting for Sufferings has already appointed a clerk for that committee, Ingrid Greenhow, who's here somewhere. Would you like to stand up, Ingrid, and make yourself conspicuous? Thank you. Up there. You'll be coming back to appoint other members of that committee and an assistant clerk on Monday. It felt a bit premature for you to appoint them last night when you haven't yet agreed what it is you're asking them to do. And therefore they don't really know whether they've agreed to serve until they've seen that. So the terms of reference are in Appendix C. They've been available for a couple of months. This committee is going to work on our behalf. It's a committee that yearly meeting appoints, doing work on behalf of yearly meeting. So we, yearly meeting, need to be very clear what it is we're asking them to do. We held a preparation session online on Sunday, the 27th of April. Thank you to friends who made time to come to that. It was the first sunny afternoon for ages. Friends had the chance then to ask any questions or make any comments, and anything that we heard there has been taken into account. We also held a session of Meeting for Sufferings in December 2024, and as a result of comments there, made some small changes which are in the draft you have to take account of what we heard in that meeting. But the substance of what we're proposing hasn't really changed. So a few things just to draw your attention to. First of all, the name of the committee. We've already got a yearly meeting agenda committee, and that committee is going to carry on working until the middle of next year. They've been planning this yearly meeting, and they'll plan the yearly meeting that will be held in May next year. So we've deliberately changed the name of the committee to Agenda Planning Committee so that it's different and we can tell them apart. And the current yearly meeting agenda committee will finish its work after yearly meeting in May next year and be laid down. So we won't have 2 for very long, and then after that we'll just have an Agenda Planning Committee. That Agenda Planning Committee is going to need to work quite differently from how things are at present. It won't have so much time to plan each session. It's going to have to keep working. Each time they've done a yearly meeting session, the next one will be only 3 months off. So they're going to have to work in a much more rolling way and have business that's continued from one meeting to the next. We're expecting that yearly meeting might consider an item of business over several sessions spread over a year or two, rather than doing everything in one big heave in May like we're used to. So the committee is going to need to think in new ways about that. And it's going to have to deal with all the minutes that will come in from area meetings, from General Meeting for Scotland, Crynwyr Cymru Quakers in Wales, and from Young Friends General Meeting, and from other bodies that we're now allowing to send minutes in. And those minutes have previously gone to Meeting for Sufferings, so the Agenda Planning Committee will need to be able to work with those things and test and season those minutes and bring business to yearly meeting. So their focus is on planning the content of the sessions, the business that we need to do together, the worship that we need to have together, and any other activities that we need to do together as a community. And my wonderful staff colleagues will deal with lots of the practical things, freeing our committee to really concentrate on those questions that need Quaker discernment. They'll also have a real focus on making sure yearly meeting is a true, all-age, inclusive community. That doesn't mean that we will all meet together throughout every session. We don't do that now. But it does mean we'll be looking at how we integrate all ages right from the planning stage. Not planning yearly meeting to suit us older friends and then trying to find ways to include younger people in what we've already discerned should be happening, but doing that together from the start. A word about clerking. The Agenda Planning Committee will have its own clerks. Meeting for Sufferings has appointed the clerk in March this year, and we'll appoint the assistant clerk along with the other members, as I said, on Monday. The yearly meeting clerks will be part of the Agenda Planning Committee, but they won't have the job of planning and clerking every meeting on top of their preparation for yearly meeting. This is a change from how we do things now, where the yearly meeting assistant clerks, the first and second assistant, take on the clerking of the Agenda and Arrangements Committees. That feels like too much to ask when there will be 4 yearly meeting sessions each year. They might already think it's too much to ask to do it once. And we heard concern last year in ministry about the load we would be putting on clerks of this body. So this is in response to that. But the clerks of yearly meeting and the Agenda Planning Committee clerks will need to work together really closely throughout the year. And to make that easier, we're keeping to a total number of 4 clerks. So 2 clerks for yearly meeting and 2 clerks for the Agenda Planning Committee. 4 in total, rather than the 3 that we have now. So those arrangements are a response to the concerns we heard last year, both about the potential for the role to be overburdening for individuals taking on that service to the yearly meeting, but also I think to the idea that where there are roles which carry a certain amount of power, we should spread that power out and share it between several people. Kind of checks and balances, if you like. So that means there'll be 4 people with distinct roles, but who are in close enough connection that they can help out with one another's work. We expect that one of the clerks of the Agenda Planning Committee will regularly sit up here at the table at yearly meeting to take notes or to give notices, to serve in other ways as needed, but without having to have all the responsibility for preparation that the yearly meeting clerks will have. And likewise, a yearly meeting clerk would be able to step in to clerk part of an Agenda Planning Committee meeting without having to have planned the whole thing. So I hope that makes sense. The terms of reference in Appendix C are before you for your consideration. As I said, they've been in the public domain now for some time. You were invited to send in comments if there was anything you wanted to ask about or to suggest that we change, and we haven't received anything since the documents were published, which either means there's nothing you want to say or you haven't read it yet. But we'll lay them before the meeting now when the clerks are ready and happy to take any questions about that. We'll then hear from Sarah, who sat behind me, about some of the other preparation for this change that's been going on.
Thank you. Excuse me, hang on. Microphones can only do so much, really, can't they? There we go. I've been involved with these plans to make the new style of yearly meeting a success for quite some time. And it's been a great pleasure through that to meet, to talk to, and to correspond by email with friends about many aspects of these changes. I took on a new fixed term position as a member of management meeting in February of this year, and I expect to be involved with this work in a professional capacity until the end of 2026. So I've got quite a clear roadmap in front of me, and I'm always helpful for a little nudge in the right direction from any friend who wants to give one. I'm also now, since the beginning of 2025, or since March 2025, I'm the Secretary to Meeting for Sufferings, which is really helpful given the important role that Sufferings has already played and will continue to have in supporting these changes. Now, in terms of updating you, if you've looked back or if you remember minute 37 of last year, the new Agenda Planning Committee that you're about to appoint but you've just agreed to is a really crucial aspect to a lot of the plans, because it's the committee charged, the Quakers, charged with the discernment on a number of key issues, including how we appropriately handle and discern minutes received from area meetings and others. So because that committee hasn't been appointed yet and hasn't met, I can't give you firm updates on anything that was in minute 37 that's been given to them. Incidentally, if you have thoughts and views on any of that, do let me have them. I can't promise that that's what will happen, but I'll certainly make sure that the people who need to know about it, and I'll tell you how to do that at the end of this. Certainly, assuming that all the appointments are made on Monday as we hope, then they'll be meeting in June and they'll be starting work on a big list of tasks. And they'll almost certainly be checking in with Meeting for Sufferings through the rest of this year, and you, Yearly Meeting, will hear their report in May next year. Some things I can tell you about that have already happened or are further on in their progress are the following. Representation and the role or the existence of representatives to Yearly Meeting was something that we talked about last year in our sessions together, and Meeting for Sufferings and its Church Government Advisory Group have been doing some thinking about what that means and how it might work. And where we think we are, and this will all be kind of signed and sealed at Yearly Meeting next year, but I think this thinking is pretty well developed. It's gone through a few phases. So we think that area meetings will be asked to appoint a representative to Yearly Meeting. We also think that area meetings who have more than 6 local meetings will have an option to appoint a second representative, so that they can make sure that all of their local meetings feel adequately connected to what's going on. The point of appointing representatives is partly to ensure continuity, to make sure that we've got a good number of friends present at each Yearly Meeting session who are clear that it's their responsibility to come and to be aware of what's been going on, and also to help communication so that friends in their own meetings get the chance to hear what's been happening at Yearly Meeting and hopefully some encouragement to come themselves. In terms of the other bodies who are currently represented on Meeting for Sufferings, we think that it would be helpful if Young Friends General Meeting were invited to appoint 3 representatives to Yearly Meeting. Cwryn Wir Cymru, Quakers in Wales and General Meeting for Scotland, or any successor, would each be invited to appoint a representative. And if things change in Scotland, as they may, don't worry. We have a plan to make sure that representation in Scotland would be based on the overall number of local meetings, so you won't see a sudden drop in Scottish representatives. But most importantly of all friends will still be very welcome at Yearly Meeting, and may I say it, even encouraged to come. Representatives won't have a special status at Yearly Meeting sessions, but they will have a special role in informing their Quaker community about Yearly Meeting business and in supporting the friends in their community to prepare for and or to attend yearly meeting sessions. Some other things that you asked for last year from trustees. You asked about money and how representatives would be paid for. And Britain Yearly Meeting trustees have agreed that the travel and accommodation expenses for those area meeting and other representatives will come from Britain Yearly Meeting funds. That will be more expensive for yearly meeting because, for technical reasons that we needn't get into, the number of yearly meetings will cost us more in representative expenses than will be saved by laying down Meeting for Sufferings. So any area meeting that can afford to pay for their own representatives should feel free to do so, or make a donation to Yearly Meeting Friends. For those of us as individuals who are coming to Yearly Meeting not as a representative but because it's a good thing to do, our Yearly Meeting trustees have asked us to do more to publicise the availability of funds to support those friends with the costs of attending yearly meeting. You may have heard of something that's sometimes rather mysteriously referred to as the bursary fund or the bursary scheme. That sounds even more nefarious. We want to call that something a bit more friendly. We want to talk more clearly about financial support for coming to yearly meeting. And we also want to encourage area meetings to make their funds available in the same way. Individual friends who are giving to yearly meeting need to understand that we do expect that we will have to spend a bit more on some aspects of yearly meeting. So if you can give more, if you're in that fortunate position, please do. The bottom line, the important thing, is that we need everybody who wants to and who is available to come to yearly meeting to do so. So we need to be able to support that financially where needed. And finally, on money, for roll holders. The trustees, BYM trustees, have agreed to revise the general volunteer and roll holder expenses policy to make it clear that if you're appointed to service at yearly meeting, it will be possible to claim expenses. That wouldn't cover very short-term volunteering like a stint as a microphone steward or a doorkeeper, where we'd still expect that to come from people who'd already made a plan to come. But where being able to serve in an appointed role isn't possible for financial reasons, then we will hopefully be able to give that support and open that service to more friends. Some of you will be thinking very carefully about what all these changes mean for the constitution of our yearly meeting. And if you aren't thinking about it, don't worry, somebody else is. Church Government Advisory Group is working very hard on all of the revisions that are going to be needed to the current Quaker Faith and Practice, the Red Book that we're using now. And at this stage, they're expecting to bring a long list of those to Meeting for Sufferings in December 2025. You may or may not be surprised to know how many references there are to Meeting for Sufferings in the current text. And actually, I don't even know off the top of my head, so I can't tell you that, but there's a lot. And Church Government Advisory Group is looking at each of them to decide whether and how it needs to change. So if it's a quotation, maybe nothing needs to happen. If it's a change of role, we need to explain who's going to do that work instead of Sufferings. So there'll be minor revisions throughout the book, which probably Meeting for Sufferings will agree under its delegated powers, but there'll be more important changes as well, some of which will come back to yearly meeting in May next year. But remember, Meeting for Sufferings papers are all public. You don't have to be a member to read them. They're on the website. And if you're interested, you can keep in touch with that by looking at those. Remember too that I and many other colleagues are here and very happy to take your questions, to hear your comments and suggestions for the work. If you want me personally, my email address is on the Sufferings page, or you can always get hold of any of us by contacting the sort of generic address RCO, which stands for Recording Clerk's Office, at quaker.org.uk. And you can mark your email for my attention, for Paul's attention, or get potluck as to who gets to it first. We really do want to hear from you, and we really are clear that changes are to our yearly meeting, and that we're all part of that. Thank you, friends.